Running for the Bus is sponsored by Vela Forte. Have you tried their delicious overnight oats yet? Well, whether it's my favourite flavour, the smooth cocoa, or apple and cinnamon, or strawberry and coconut, you can be confident that you're getting the minimum of 15 grams of protein, a whole load of fibre, and heart-healthy beta-glucans, as well as omega-3 in each serving. And do you want to know the good news? Well, you can get 30% off using the code RFTB30. That's right, 30% off, not just the oats, but also their protein bars, their energy bars, and their oat bars, as well as their electrolyte powders and energy juice. In fact, you get 30% off their entire natural, nutritious, and tasty range using the code RFTB30. Hello and welcome to Running for the Bus, presented by BKDMC, supported by Runner, and hosted by me, Ben Kelleher. Joining me today, just days after completing her incredible Project 1000, where she ran 1,000 kilometers solo through the Philippines, running 2 times marathons a day for 12 days and earning multiple Guinness World Records in the process, is Natalie Dau. Natalie is also the best-selling author of Run Like a Woman, a keynote speaker and radio host of Kiss at 92 FM, who has raised thousands for charity. Natalie, thank you very much for coming on so soon after your challenge. How are you and how's the body recovering?
Thank you for having me. I think I'm still on a high. The body's surprisingly feeling good at this point, but I'm thick in work again, and the mind is not so thick in the
just
work.
ticking through. Well, it's good that the body's holding up well, and yeah, that mind is. I think it's sometimes getting back into things, especially when you've been away from it, can be tricky no matter what. Let alone having just run 1,000 kilometers. So I think that that's fair reason, I would say. So before we get into your sort of latest epic challenge I mentioned there in the intro, how did your running journey itself really begin for you?
Yeah, so I started running, probably in my 20s, which was all about losing weight or, running off a hangover. And then just started to enjoy it more and more and realized it wasn't just about trying to look good, but there was some, benefits to my mental health. It was time for myself. I then had my daughter, and after that, I continued running. So it was really just me time for that. And it wasn't until I hit my 30s that I really ran competitively, and realized if I trained, maybe I was okay at this thing. So it's really evolved. I would say I'm definitely a late
Sure.
bloomer.
And like you say, it sort of led you into that journey, which I guess you could never really have seen coming. So like what inspired you, I guess, to make that start from maybe, as you say, running off a hangover or just getting out and getting fit? What was it that really sort of made the impetus for you?
Yeah, I think like anything, it was just I
Yeah.
created a habit. And for me, rather than, I would go to the gym, but running was, I always call it lazy exercise because you can put on your shoes and you go, you don't have to drive anywhere. So it was convenience. And it was just being outside, and then, meeting different run
Sure.
communities as well. And then, using it as a forum to really get uncomfortable with, you know, in my own space and pushing myself and just to see what was possible. So I enjoyed the
Yeah,
challenge of it
yeah,
as well.
definitely. And I love that idea that it's sort of a lazy sport because you can, like you say, just put on your shoes and get out. And then I guess you couldn't have really imagined where it would take you now, right? Like from that to this.
Absolutely not. No idea. I don't know how I got here, to be honest.
Well, since then you've run countless marathons and taken on a multitude of endurance events. Do any sort of stand out particularly as sort of challenging for you or rewarding, or there might be more than one, obviously.
Yeah, so I think when I first got into ultras, I'd never run a marathon. And I'd been doing track because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone and do something I'd never done. So I sort of went from running 1,500 meters and 800 meters thinking, what's the most extreme thing I can do? Okay, I'm going to train for an ultra. So I spent 10 months training for that, and had no idea of what I was getting myself in for. The idea was just to finish. I didn't know how to fuel properly. My headphones broke within the first 5K. So it was like, okay, I'm just going to do this without music or a podcast. And I just loved
Yeah,
every single second of it. And to the point where I I was about 15 Ks it was a 100K ultra, and I was about 15 Ks from the finish. And I passed the guy that was leading the race, and I ended up crossing the line
Oh wow.
overall in first place. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I need
Yeah,
to do more
definitely.
of these. So I think I enjoyed where it took me, obviously physically, but also where it
Yeah.
took me mentally. And so after that, it was like, okay, well, maybe I'm okay at these things. And I actually really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the process of
Yeah,
training
yeah,
for
that
it
sort
as
of journey
well.
that you went on, I guess, and yeah, that's quite an endeavor to take on 100K straight away, and like for an endurance event, and then yeah, to go and win it is even better. So so well done, and yeah, obviously that moment has inspired you to continue through those other months of training, then getting back out into different events, and we actually met back in March at the Tokyo Marathon, where we got talking the day before at a shakeout run with Abbott and Westin, and it was during that shakeout where you just sort of casually dropped into the conversation. And to be honest, we were running through the streets and we were just talking about lots of different stuff. And it's one of those things where I was like, oh yeah, sure, sure, like that sounds great. And then but like not quite clocking it until like a few seconds later and be like, oh sorry, what did you say? Like, and in terms of like you said you were preparing for a 1,000 kilometer run 2 months later, which in fact was your second time in doing this, which brings us on to Project 1000. Could you explain what this involved for anyone who perhaps doesn't know?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, as you said, it's the second time I've done it in 11 months. So, I got sort of sick of just doing races, and I was looking for something more and how to give back. So, I just thought, well, what's a crazy thing I can do? And last year it was I ran from Thailand through Malaysia and finished in Singapore. So, as you said at the beginning, 2 marathons a day for 12 days. I thought, oh, that's potentially doable, having no idea of what I was getting
Mm-hmm.
myself in for. Um, and it was the most amazing experience. We stopped at schools along the way and raised money for girls, so around body empowerment and fitness. And yes, set a Guinness World Record in
Yeah.
the
What was that
process.
Guinness World Record that you broke down?
So it was fastest crossing of Malaysia
Yeah, so just
Peninsula on
casually
foot.
breaking a record in between
And
running a
then
1,000K.
yeah, I know. So that it was sort of quite full on, and it was a life-changing experience. And then I got talked into doing it again this year, which we chose the Philippines because it has a really close to my heart. We have a Filipino nanny that's been with us forever, and I have a lot of Filipino friends, and I felt like it was a place that I could run and make a change in. So, again, having no idea, I've only been there once. I've never been to the provinces that we ran before. And it was a life-changing experience, I have to say. It was
Yeah,
next level crazy. And, and finished, yeah, less than a week ago
yeah.
now. So, yeah,
Well, it sounds
insane.
it, but it also sounds like you say just incredible. I mean, as I say, thanks again for coming on doing this so soon afterwards because it was so recent and so sort of fresh in the mind. Which is great to sort of discuss it and so as you say, you went through the different communities and that connection with the Philippines. I know you wanted to make a change as you went through and connect with lots of people, and I saw, and anyone who can look on your socials and things like that can see the journey that you went on and the people you met along the way. And I guess that connection must have been incredible for you.
Yeah, I think the first time I did it last year, it was much more an insular experience about why am I doing this and what does it mean to me. And this time was very much about strength and connection with community. And, we were going into, places that a lot of Filipinos haven't been, into very poor areas. We had a great sponsor with a company called Jollibee, which is one of the biggest restaurant companies in the world. And we were feeding the children Jollibee along the way and bringing them joy, and then, donating money for sporting equipment. And the connection, every single Filipino person that I met along the way just said,
Mm.
thank you for doing this. It wasn't me thanking them, they were thanking me, which was quite overwhelming. So, the first one I was in tears all the time. This time, the only time I teared up was really when I saw the children or was overwhelmed with the welcome that we got running through these towns
Yeah, I
from
love that. I love the
everyone.
community that you've built along the way there and brought with you on the journey. I think that makes it even more special, I'm sure, for you as you go. So looking at that as well, what really inspired you to perhaps do it the first time, and then we'll think about the second time? So the first time you did it, what was the inspiration there?
The first time was just naivety. I think it just sounded like a good idea, something different, and so we were so raw, the crew and I, that we didn't even have a massage gun with us. That's how stupid we were on the first one. So it was like the blind leading the
Wow.
blind, and off we went on this adventure. And I crossed the line
Mm.
quite shattered, but I loved the raw experience, and I think to make me do it the second time was really craving that raw experience. It's such an intense thing. You're in, a couple of vans for 12 days, just the crew. It's down and dirty, which I feel like you don't get to experience that much in life anymore. And it's pretty secluded because, we're going through, we don't see people sometimes for hours and hours and hours. You're lucky to find a shop to buy, Coke or whatever, water. So I think just being disconnected for that time is really what is meaningful to me as well, because you just don't get
Yeah,
that in
yeah,
everyday
definitely,
life.
and be able to sort of, like you say, roll up your sleeves and get into something that maybe not many other people are doing for sure. So, and having
Yes.
that experience, and especially in somewhere like the Philippines as well, like you say, where you've perhaps not been to some of those places that you got to visit, and actually you've not met certain people in that community before. So being able to reach them and do it in a way that brings them together, and you could see the pure joy of certain moments as well, and that which I think is quite unique to see, and people don't maybe think of when they think of somebody taking on a challenge like this. They don't realize what that can bring. So
Yeah, and I think, you look at there's so much so much that we can do that's quite overwhelming because you want to help everyone, but you actually can't. So, I think it's just about doing what you can with what you can
yeah,
at that moment and helping who you can. So, you come away going, "Oh, I wish I could have done more," but sadly we're limited with what we can do. But I do believe that every little bit counts, and that's how you have to look at it. And if you can impact one person, then it's definitely
definitely, 100%.
worthwhile.
So when you're gearing up to run 1,000 kilometers, how do you sort of train for such a mammoth task like that? Like, what does that preparation look like?
Well, it's been two extremes. So last year I was super trained up. I was ready to go. I really didn't taper that much. We sort of just rolled through to the 1,000. But I ended up with a hip injury on day one from going out running too fast. And then I ended up with a bad UTI and rhabdo at the end of the
Hmm.
first one last year. This time, I hobbled my way over the finish of the Tokyo Marathon because of my bad plantar fasciitis, and I actually couldn't walk for a
Really?
week afterwards. So the longest I'd run since Tokyo for a long run was 20K. That was
As
it.
by 50,
So
I'd be
I
fine.
came in so underprepared, so underprepared. So let's just say the first 3 days were spent running myself into fitness, hoping my plantar
Mm,
behaved itself. And they were a painful 3 days, and it was 43-degree temperature. So we were cooking eggs on the road and things because it was
that's
so
the heat
hot.
that we
Um,
were discussing heat earlier
yes,
on.
the heat
Whew,
was insane.
43, that would cook me.
But yeah, it was crazy. But after that, we just got faster and faster. So I actually feel like I got stronger as we went on, and there was learnings from the first one. We had a strategy right from the start of run walk to get you through. So like a 15-minute run, 2-minute walk, and we would break that up during the day. And as it got hotter, and we'd start running at midnight to try and escape the heat. So I think the learnings from the first one helped me a lot in the second, and I came out and from a physical point of view, was so much stronger in finishing, and stronger a
Yeah,
week
yeah,
later
yeah. I
too.
mean, looking at you now, you look like maybe you've been out for like a 5K this morning, maybe not quite a thousand last week. So yeah, you're looking fresh from it for sure. So it's good to see that maybe some lessons have been learned. But I mean, either way, running 1,000K is phenomenal. So whichever approach you take, and the idea that you did it off the back of 20 kilometers of training is quite insane. But it's that sort of mental resilience as well, isn't it? And knowing that you've got it in the legs, right? You've got 1,000 k there. Just whenever you need it, you can whip it out, sort of thing.
I know. I had to just believe that, and it was like we have to be at in Manila City at 4:30 on the Friday. So if I have to walk through the night, we will do it, no matter what. Was I think taking away. Someone said to me, "You can quit at any time." I said, "No, I can't, because quitting is
Hmm.
not on my list
Hmm.
of options." So it is. We will finish. It might not be pretty, but we will finish. But there is no
Yeah,
quitting as an
exactly. I think that's
option.
such a key thing to take away in terms of like mentally, because quite often I get people sort of say to me, like I might say, oh yeah, I'm gonna do like a 50k run at the weekend for a training run or whatever it might be. And they go, well, you don't have to do that. You don't need to. And they said, somebody said to me just yesterday, actually, like you know do marathon runners and runners in general know that they don't have to do these things? It's like, and my sort of response to that, and I'd be happy to sort of find out yours as well, is yeah, we don't have to, but we can and we want to, and the reward we find in that is so much more long term than maybe just not doing it, and and not pushing yourself to go out there and find the success in that, and the happiness of maybe actually there's so many more things I can achieve when I know I can do this, and I can take, like you say, my when I signed up to London, when I did London Marathon, I was saying to you before, is I was 17, going on the ballot, was not a runner, couldn't run for 5 minutes, was skinny, had a paper round sort of thing, so I relatively slim and fit, but not a runner, and it was only because I sort of signed in on that blind faith, and I said, well, I'm in now, so that I'm doing it, and that training that really gets you. It's the mental thing of having a challenge and setting that goal and reaching it for me. But yeah, I'd love to know your take on it.
Yeah, I think people, it's their insecurities that they put on other people, or their self-belief, um, oh, well, why are you doing it? Your knees are going to be bad. It's excuses constantly, and it doesn't have to be running. It's like I always say to people, you don't have to love
Yeah,
running. Find your thing. It's okay for it to be swimming or cycling or whatever it is, but the important thing
yeah,
is you're moving. But I think for some people
yeah.
it's excuses a lot of times, and I'm not good with
No, yeah,
excuses, so
yeah,
I'll just call them out. And like you said, I think it's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and realizing that challenging yourself is the only way to grow and learn, and what you get out of it is not just from the run, but it's
yeah.
lessons in life. And that's, I think, it
Yeah,
is the
I think
bigger
you're totally
picture.
right. I think it's finding that reward in the discomfort, in the challenge, knowing that you're capable of so much more than maybe you've pushed yourself before. And in an upcoming episode, actually, in the next episode, there's a gentleman coming on, and he's just got his 6 star in London when I was there the other day, handing out some of the medals we were discussing before. And he turned 70 this year, and he got his 6 star after a 34-year journey from that. And in between that, I think it was about 7 years ago, he was told that he'd never run again because he had to have a hip replacement. And at that time, I think he'd run about 5 marathons, and then since then he's run 38. So as you say, there's reasons that you could potentially give, but there's also a flip of that coin to say
Yeah.
these are the reasons I'm going to actually change that, right? So
Exactly. It's all mindset, and if you really want to do it, you will find a way. I always say that, you've got to give up something to get what you want, and it's whether you actually do want to be accountable and
yeah,
give that thing
definitely.
up.
So for you, when do the nerves perhaps really strike, or like how do you overcome them when they do come along?
Yeah, I think, I was a mess before this because of the planning is so involved, and permitting, and there's a 6 months worth of planning, and I did it all myself. I'm a control freak. So I think I just rolled that, and until I actually started running and finished on that first day, did I really sort of calm down a bit. So for me, it was more stress than nerves, because, as you said before, I believed that I could do it, and it was just hoping that my foot, held. and that it wasn't going to be too painful and going through. But I think the lead up, like any race, the lead up is worse. Once you start, you're in it and it's too late to turn back. So those pre-race nerves, doesn't matter if you're doing a 5K or a marathon or 1,000,
Yeah,
they're all the
yeah, for
same.
sure. And it's interesting actually you saying like the initial sort of start and the first day where you were most nervous. Because then earlier you mentioned that it was as you went on that you felt you got stronger and the run itself got even more sort of better as an experience. So the sort of when you maybe leave those things to the side, you can actually enjoy it, right? And you find so much more sort of power from that.
Yeah, I definitely was finding
Yeah,
a lot more joy. My crew were high energy, which made a massive difference as well. So I think, like anything, you are who you
yeah,
surround yourself with. So, they were the right people for the job to support me. And they had a good time along the way. So, I have to bring the energy because they're all there for me. So it's my responsibility to be upbeat, but they took that energy and leveled it
yeah,
up almost. So everyone said you made it look too easy. It looked like you guys were having too much fun, and it's like, well, it it was damn hard, and it was harder terrain and harder temperature than the last one. But I think there was some lightness in it rather than this is a struggle and what am I doing here. It was okay. We're going to make the most of this and just enjoy this experience as
yeah.
much as
Finding
we
joy in those
can.
moments also makes things more enjoyable along the way, right? It makes things easier in a way, as much as the challenge itself is still so hard. But finding the happiness and also the community that you had on this time in particular, I think has probably made that experience so much more fulfilling for you. And I think as well, like also
Yeah.
thinking about the team that you created, like how do you create a team like that? What do you think when you're sort of picking the people to join you and team you?
Yeah, it's whoever's game, to be honest. So, it's always this ramshackle of people. I only had one person with me, James, who was with me for the whole time last time. So he's done the 2000 with me. And then I had a couple of people that came in and out who had done the first one. But my two other crew, Sandy and Esther, like Sandy flew over from San Fran. She's a long term friend. And Esther's, she's the young one. She's 25. And I'm thinking, this is going to be down and dirty. So be ready for living out of a stinky van. But I think everyone always has their own reasons for doing something, and it becomes quite personal along the way, as much as it's a shared experience. So I think as long as everyone comes with the right attitude and expectations are set, then you end up just pulling the right people together. And I always said to them, we're not saving lives. We're not going to the Olympics. So let's just, get on with it and do our best and get through the day and try and celebrate all of the small wins along the way and experience
Yeah,
everything that you
definitely. And
can.
talking about that experience itself, like what was it like in terms of getting through, the tough days? What were there moments on the journey that you found particularly difficult or rewarding as well?
Yeah, I think, I would hit the wall. We'd start running at midnight and I'd hit the wall
Yeah,
about 3 a.m., just tired and in a slump. Um, and so it was sort of questioning life choices every morning. And then I'm like, okay, what do I do to get over this? I need to start drinking caffeine earlier or something. And I think it does with something like that, it comes down to
yeah,
fueling properly. So knowing if I'm going to go in a slump, to try and cut that off so it keeps the energy up high. I can't control the weather. It's damn hot. So uh, accept what it is. And if I need to take another 5 minute break because I need to cool down, so be it. 5 minutes is not going to make a difference. So just sort of accepting circumstances and controlling what I can control was definitely the key. And it made the second half of it much, much easier than the first half. And looking forward to the moments of joy of seeing the kids along the way, and people reading out messages and random people joining us for the run that had heard about it that just turn up at 1 a.m. on the side of a road somewhere, was
yeah,
really,
yeah.
really
That's so
fun.
amazing, isn't it, to be able to bring people together like that? And when you see people turn up in those moments, it's almost shocking to think that they've come out at that time and surprising. But it's must bring you sort of satisfaction at that time. So as well as that, I think, what does like the recovery in between each run look like? So because I know obviously you're running through, and at times you had to walk through the night and starting at midnight. So how many sort of hours of sleep do you get along the way and things like that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
maximum 4 hours. So we'd obviously finish, try and eat, but then we're staying in a hotel. I use that term very loosely. And sometimes it could be half an hour away to get to to the accommodation. So then by the time I'm ripping all my tape off and having a shower and then eating, and I did manage to get a massage every second day along the way, which made a
yeah,
massive difference. But that was it for recovery. It was like I just need to get into bed
yeah,
as soon as possible, and then we're sort of up at 10:30. Getting prepping everything, and off we
yeah.
go again.
Do you get much
So
sleep in that time? Can you?
yeah,
you
yeah, maximum 4 hours. Sometimes, like on a
yeah,
bad night, 2 hours. And if I was really tired, I would sort of jump in the van after doing maybe 4 cycles of 15 minutes and just say, give
yeah,
me a 10-minute nap, just to try and grab a couple of minutes sleep. And that did help a lot. So I did listen to my body from that perspective. We
yeah,
did have a massage gun this time, so if my hips were sore, I'd get into that. But I think I'm pretty robust. So along the way, my body
yeah,
held up
yeah.
pretty
And obviously in
well.
your team as well, you've got people there sort of looking at making sure you're fueling properly and making sure that you're getting the right sort of recovery. I'd expect.
A lot of jam sandwiches were consumed.
Brilliant. Oh well, that's good knowledge. I will, somebody said to me the other day about the 100k that I'm doing next month. I'm doing my first ultra next month, and first 100k. I've done a 50, and yeah, they said, oh yeah, jam sandwiches, and I was like, oh, that sounds nice. That sounds like what I don't think I've had them since I was like a 5-year-old. So clearly that's the way. That's
It's
the
the
secret.
secret. Yeah, I always go jam, peanut butter, and Vegemite, so you can have Marmite. But I always break it up between the three of those, and that
Good,
keeps
good
me
knowledge.
going.
Good knowledge from me. And for anyone else looking to take on any ultra runs, maybe not quite 1,000k, but somewhere in the region. Were there sort of any moments along that journey where you really questioned whether you could truly do it, whether it be the first time you did it or the second time?
Yeah, I think the first time I did it, most definitely, the first day we ran a 4 hour marathon for the first marathon, which was way too fast. I got really excited. And then my hip, went by. We didn't even finish our mileage the first day. And I was like, it's all over. It's day one. I'm not going to be able to turn up tomorrow and run. So that was pretty scary in the first one. And then with, my UTI, I was peeing blood for 7 days. I'm like, oh my God,
Mm.
what's going on? So it was a much more dramatic 12 days. This time, I think the first 3 days, I'm like, what am I doing? Why did I do this again? Um,
Was there like a
but
fear as well of
so I
like
definitely
those
questioned
things
what.
happening again, or you know?
Yeah, definitely a fear of it. Definitely a fear of my plantar going and having to walk a lot, and and getting sick. So I think there's always something that you're not sure what is going to go wrong, and all you can do is manage the situation as best as
A lot of
possible.
people
So
in that
there's
situation
always
as
another.
well. If they're
Yeah.
especially the first time around, if you're sort of peeing blood and things like that, a lot of people might think, I've got to stop. Like, so what helped you to sort of keep going in that moment?
Yeah, I didn't tell anyone, number one, and I had 5 kilos of fluid on my legs by the end. It was
Wow.
crazy, but I'm like, I've just got to finish this. So I think I was so far in and so invested that, giving up wasn't an option. I'd already, we're on day 8 or whatever. It's like, okay, just counting down the kilometers, and knowing the last day would be would be okay because we were back in Singapore, and ended up running 1,040 because we got so excited on the last day. I ran
It's
40 Ks
only near a
extra.
marathon on top.
Um, as you do, yeah. So that was a bit crazy. And this time the fear was definitely there, but I think the experience just maybe numbed
Yeah,
it a little
yeah, for
bit.
sure. And as you say, along the way, you face different sort of challenges that you might have, and it's about how you sort of respond to them. And mentally, what do you think it is that helps you to adapt in that situation? Say, I know I can overcome this.
Yeah, I think it's I'm choosing to be out there. No one's making me do this, so it's almost a suck it up
Yeah,
and keep going, because everyone's here to support me. They've given up their time, and really I don't want to let anyone down. So yeah, it is really toughen up. I think the worst thing this time was the dogs. We had thousands and thousands
yeah,
of wild
yeah.
dogs, sort of chasing us,
Really, I saw
attacking.
that quite early on. To be fair, I remember
Yes,
seeing them barking on the side of the street
yes.
and different things. I was like, they don't look too friendly. To be fair.
No, they were not too friendly. So there's a couple of times where you're sort of forced to jump in the van because you've got to escape the
Yeah,
packs of dogs. And then when the sun hit, they were too lazy to come out. So it was really in the dark moments, and that happened every single day. So by the end of it, I think you just get numb
mm,
to it. But it was pretty full on
yeah,
right from the
definitely. I don't think
start.
any of those are going to get an audition for Crofts anytime soon. So as you crossed that finish line, what was your initial reaction this time round?
Yeah, it was mental. So, we ran, if anyone's ever been to Manila, they'll know how insane that city is. And we were actually treated like royalty. We had police escorts. They closed freeways for us in
Amazing.
central Manila. We had the mayor there giving me the
Wow.
key to the city. So it was so overwhelming. And running with local schools that came out. So we had 80 kids crossing the finish line with us,
Yeah,
which was fantastic. Yeah, it was. I don't think I've quite processed it yet because it
yeah,
was just joyous, really, rather than it being this emotional, upheaval and crying. It was just pure joy, and a celebration, which was fantastic. So definitely a once in a lifetime
yeah. That
experience,
sounds
that's for
phenomenal,
sure.
and quite a sort of different experience to what you'd had before, and be able to do it with so many people along the way. And as well as that, you were raising funds for children to give them access to sport and education, supporting causes both locally and internationally, including Save the Children's Girls Impact Fund. How much of a drive did this give you?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's the reason I was doing it, and that definitely this time around. And I think for people to be able to see the change that they could make, through my socials, and see the actual kids that they could help, um, made a massive
Mhm.
difference this time. So that was definitely the driver, and as I said, the only thing over the whole run that really brought tears to my eyes, because we were
Yeah,
meeting the kids we were helping, and they were so enthusiastic and so fabulous, um, and yeah, just seeing that change
yeah,
was
for
was
sure. And the
great.
impact, you can see it right there, not only with the money that you're raising, but also just the inspiration for those children, seeing somebody like yourself out there doing it, and they actually, I can do this. I can, like, they can see it, and they can almost, touch it and believe it. And I think that's so inspiring for so many people there, but also watching on socials and supporting you along the way. So definitely. What do you think you yourself will take away from this experience?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm definitely going back to the Philippines to visit the charities and do some more work there. So for me, it's a longer term relationship. I've committed to not doing another Project 1000.
Say that now.
Yeah, I think, Yeah, I think two's enough. And, there's nothing, not saying I won't do something else, but I don't think it needs to be in this
Yeah,
format. Um, but I think definitely back to do some more charity work, and that's what it's
yeah,
really about for me. And if running stupid distances brings awareness to issues, then that's a
yeah,
great way to do
definitely.
it.
And as you say, going from that experience of getting out there in your 20s, maybe being a bit of a late bloomer when it comes to running, to running 1,000 k and inspiring people and being able to, see the impact you're having on the ground must be just incredibly rewarding from that.
Yeah, and I think there's sort of a almost a little bit of a bro culture with some of these long endurance, feats that are going on. Nothing, not taking away from anyone, but I think for me, it's bringing something different and bringing some humility and humanity back into it, rather than just it's all about
Yeah,
records and we've got to
yeah,
smash it. It's bringing a softer side to it, and especially as someone who's older, I find more
yeah,
meaning in
definitely. I
that.
think, to be honest with you, I think that resonates with a lot of the things I'm invested in and I do, because I think the impact you can have on others and inspiring others, and to get involved in running is super there. And I think, as you say, sometimes these challenges seem so unattainable, and sort of, you see certain things and you can see it and it becomes quite difficult for people, and it makes you think, oh my gosh, I don't even want to put on my running shoes. Whereas actually seeing your journey and seeing you experiencing so much joy in such an incredible challenge, that, as you say, people saying to you that, you made it look too easy. Well, I think that's actually a really brilliant thing that you did, because actually it makes people go, well, you can run 1,000 k and still be smiling out there and enjoying it. So yeah, I can lace up and start my running journey. So I think that's brilliant to see.
Yeah, I was saying to people along the way,
Hmm.
1K is better than no K, right? So that's it. And they're like, oh, I didn't think about that, because everyone thinks they have to go and run some, 10K or a marathon or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah,
just 1K,
yeah,
just do 1K. That's all you need to do. So that was definitely the message, was just, something attainable, feeling like you're winning, is the
yeah,
most
definitely.
important
I think
thing.
running really does bring that out of people as well. I was talking about in London the other day. I mean, I saw the elites, I saw Kipchoge out there running, but I also was there at 7:30 cheering on that final finisher, and then giving out some of those medals to people who've been out there running for 9 or 10 hours. And actually, as you meet those
Yeah.
people who've been on those journeys, you can also just see how much they put into it, how much time they've still put the hours of training in. They've still done the work as much as, other people have who've maybe broken records. So it's actually, seeing the reward in the challenge itself is amazing, and it doesn't have to be, a world record or whatever it is. It can just be your own journey, and that's brilliant in itself.
Yeah, I always cry for the finishes at the end.
Yeah.
I never cry for the winners. I'm always more emotional seeing the
Oh
people at
yeah,
the end of the race, because they've worked, that's a big deal. So that's who I feel for, most
definitely.
definitely.
And that sort of relates to also the fact that you're an author and you wrote the award-winning book Run Like a Woman, which, has inspired so many people to run, and to get involved in running. But what inspired you to write it, and what do you hope people will resonate with when they're reading it?
Yeah, so I think, it's a topic that is not talked about still. It affects half the world's population, and everyone sort of shies away from it. So really, it was just trying to empower women even more, and young girls, around understanding their body and how to perform better. So again, it's not about, you know, high performance, but it's about understanding how to get the most out of your running, training around your cycle, and it's okay not to feel good
Mhm.
sometimes. And this is why you're not feeling good, but this is how you can manage it. So, really just to open up conversations, and make them a bit more normal. And, a lot of women have male coaches and they may be embarrassed to
Mhm.
talk about it. So it's having the forum, or helping people be brave enough and empowered enough to ask the
Yeah, definitely.
questions.
Because you say it obviously affects, half the population and the runners, and it's a topic that shouldn't really be taboo. It's something that needs to be addressed and responded to. And I think lots of races are looking at things that they can do to support women along the race, and if they're in the cycle, different things. So I think that conversation is vital.
Yeah, and knowledge is power, right? So if you know how to train around it, then you get the best out of your body, and you're not frustrated and you're not burning yourself out, and mentally you're in a better place as well. So I think all of those things
Absolutely,
count.
definitely. So looking ahead slightly now, do you have any maybe astonishing or maybe just sort of heartfelt challenges that you yet to take on, but perhaps would like to in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I won't say that there's not something that will happen in maybe next year. I don't know what that is. I have a very persuasive crew wanting to be part of something else. Yeah, I need to think about what that might be and if I'm up for it. But I think in the interim, I'll go and do New York and I'll go and do Boston,
Yeah,
just for the experience. I'm definitely more an ultra runner than a marathon runner. Um, but I think just keeping an open mind to see what comes along more than anything. I don't feel like I need to train to race. I'm happily just training, for the sake of training and enjoying that process. So yeah,
see what happens
we'll
along the
see
way
what
for sure.
happens.
So that brings me to my final question, really. And we ask this to everyone who comes on the podcast. And it's basically, what would you say to someone who looks at your journey and says, I could never do that. I can't even run for the bus?
Yeah, so I would say you do not need to run 1,000 kilometers, but you need to find your own Project 1000. So dig deep, think about what's important to you and what drives you, and just take that first small step to it. Don't be afraid, because one step forward is better than no step at
Definitely.
all. So yeah, pick something and go for
I
it.
love
Be
that.
brave.
Definitely be brave and see where it take you for sure. Thanks so much for coming on, Natalie. I super appreciate it. And it's been great chatting to you so recently after the challenge, and can't wait to see what's next for you.
Thank you so
Perfect.
much for having me.
It's about time that we now check in with our deliriously mad challenger, Vienna Forward, to see how she's getting on with her training.
Hi Ben, just wanted to give you a quick video update on the running journey. So we've had a spanner in the works. I damaged my meniscus on a simple 5k. So we're currently in physio. We've got 2 more months of physio to go, until we get the green light to get back to training. But we're working hard on strengthening my muscles and hopefully we'll get back to it soon. Bye!
Thank you for listening to this episode of Running for the Bus, presented by BKDMC. Thank you to our guest today, Natalie Dau, our deliriously mad challenger, Vienna Forward, Runner, the Podcast Room, and Bella Forte for their support. You can get 2 weeks free Runner using the code BKDMC, plus you'll get 30% off at Bella Forte with the code RFTB30. Head to the Ben Kelleher DMC Insta now to find the tread playlist, the Rookie Runners training plan, information on how to become a deliriously mad challenger, and lots more. If you've enjoyed the show, well, what are you waiting for? Hit follow and you'll be notified every time a new episode drops. We'd also love to hear from you, so drop us a message or leave a review. See you next time on Running for the Bus, where you can listen and watch on the run, on the bus, or whilst you're running for it.